performance overview and scrutiny panel. I think to start off with, just go through a few housekeeping. The meeting tonight will be recorded and live streamed by HDC. When you're using the microphones, just make sure that we only ever have 2 microphones on at one time. The microphones are quite sensitive, so apparently they can pick up conversations that are being had whilst other people are talking. So just be mindful of that if you're having discussions between yourselves whilst other people are speaking as well. A reminder that mobile phones, members and the public should switch off mobile phones. Fire exits, the quickest one is the one just here, and obviously the fire assembly point is up on the car park, I believe. Right. Yeah, I think so. The last meeting that we had, I didn't do this, but I think it might be good if we just have brief introductions. So I don't know if we want to go around the room. Councillor Scott, if we start with yourself.
Councillor Scott, Glen Ward.
Councillor Bremner, Logan Ward, subbing for Councillor Rickman.
Councillor Graves, Broughton Astley, South and Lear.
Councillor Burrell, Thurmby and Houghton Ward.
Yeah, Councillor King, Kibbles Ward.
Councillor Moder, Bilston and Tilton Ward, and I'm subbing tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Beadle, Cabinet Member for the Corporate and Wellbeing Portfolio.
Councillor Jim Knight, and the portfolio holder for finance.
Hey Aitken, I'm the Business Planning and Performance Manager.
Russell, Head of Financial Services.
Clive Mason, Director of Resources in Section 151.
And we also have online Liam Mickleborough as well, Officer.
Hi, I'm Liam Mickleborough, Head of Democratic Services, Elections and Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. Right. Item number 1, apologies for absence. Obviously, going through the introductions, we've got 4 apologies. So Councillor Foreman, Councillor Gurr, Councillor Grafton Reid, who is being subbed by Councillor Moder, and Councillor Rickman, who's being subbed by Councillor Dr. Bremner. Item number 2, declarations of members' interest. Does any member have any interest that they need to declare relating to tonight's agenda? Okay, thank you very much. The last meeting was held on the 18th of September. The minutes are in the pack that you will have received. I just need to check and ask for approval of the minutes. So I think we need a proposer and a seconder. Councillor,
To propose.
thank you, Councillor Burrell. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Scott, thank you very much. Everybody's happy with the minutes? Yeah, excellent. We'll sign those off then. Okay, the first main item on the agenda tonight is the portfolio update for the corporate and wellbeing portfolio, and we have Councillor Beadle here, who's you should have on your desks in front of you the report from Councillor Beadle. So if I ask Councillor Beadle to present that report. Oh, sorry, apologies. Thank you, Councillor Beadle.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a bit of a lengthy report. There's been lots going on. It's all good stuff. So I'll start off with the Elections and Democratic Services team. And they've held several by-elections in addition to the scheduled May elections. All have been run successfully by the team. They've also been implementing the final parts of the Election Act, most notably the required review of all postal voters, which has to be completed by the end of January. Letters have been sent to all residents affected, and there's going to be further communication sent out in January. Key programme for the team in the coming months will be the Community Governance Review, which is going to Council next week. Our land charges team have been successful in their reaccreditations gold standard for the way they administer the service, as well as the street naming and numbering service also receiving excellent external validation for the smooth operation of the service. I appreciate there's been some concerns from members about the Democratic Services team resource, but I'm pleased to confirm that as of the 8th of December, the team were fully recruited to on a permanent basis. And I'd like to pay credit and tribute to Alan Newman and Sarah Hamilton for their hard work to support us all at this time. The team have been working to share more development opportunities with us. As we approach LGR, we need to think about how we will work differently. And with that in mind, I'm asking in the new year for the member development group to be reconvened. Members will also have seen the survey that was sent out in October to us all, seeking our views on the support we receive. This will be coming to the Constitution Review Committee in the new year. We've also been implementing a number of governance improvements, including the recent whistleblowing policy review and standards procedures. This work will continue in the coming months with the reviews planned for the anti-fraud, bribery and money laundering policies. On corporate services, a new corporate services manager has been recruited and will hopefully start in the new year. Other members of the team have also been recruited, which now gives a full team for the new year. Work is ongoing to develop and plan for a review of information governance with data cleansing and archiving to be undertaken in 2026-27. Legal services, our head of legal services, Julie Young, has now left the council, but temporary arrangements are in place to cover her post. But recruitment options will be considered in the new year. Legal recruitment does continue to be difficult, but all posts are covered in the interim. Legal team worked with the planning enforcement team to put in place an injunction for unauthorised development, taking it through the court successfully and reiterating our commitment to taking action where it is necessary to do so. The legal team have also been busy supporting the procurement of the new waste service and supporting the housing team in purchasing new properties. On the subject of the housing team, they have increased the council portfolio of owned and leased properties for the use of as temporary accommodation from 8 to 18 in the past 12 months, with 15 currently operational, and they're working hard at pace to bring the latest 3 properties into use. What this means in practice is that around 1/3 of temporary accommodation needs are now met in a cost-effective and sustainable way, reducing our reliance on costly private providers. The last couple of weeks, the government's Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government are providing a further £466,000 in funding, which will allow 3 further properties to be purchased, including 2 as temporary accommodation. Demand for homelessness services remains uncomfortably high, with a 15% increase in the past 12 months. This has been driven by domestic abuse, private landlords ending tenancies, and a more general relationship breakdowns within households. The team are typically dealing with between 70 and 80 new cases every month. Over the summer, the housing team has successfully rehoused 3 tenants from the Leicestershire County Council owned Brookfields House Learning Disabilities scheme in Great Glen, which was flooded in January. The team are working with a further 3 tenants. And in October this year, the team were involved in the annual rough sleep account, and we determined that there were 3 people rough sleeping. Officers are continuing to work with the specialist support services to address those people's housing needs. Our environment team, since October, have served 2 community protection notices on long-term empty properties to enforce that the owners undertake works to secure the properties, undertake minor remedial works and tidy up overgrowth. One was in Stoughton, the other is in Upper Bruntingthorpe. The council's empty property strategy was reviewed earlier this year, and we have now successfully employed a full-time empty property officer who starts with us in the new year. Their main goal will be to encourage owners of long-term empty properties to bring them back into use. Again, in October, the Environment team served 2 Environmental Protection Act notices to clear and cleanse 2 filthy and verminous properties that were fully cluttered. We worked with the NHS and social services and undertook work in default to bring the properties back into a suitable state to give the vulnerable occupants a chance to return home. Both properties were in Market Harborough. We're currently looking to enforce and undertake work in default in relation to a significant amount of waste piled up outside someone's house that is deemed to be a health and safety and fire hazard in Lutterworth. Been dealing with 3 different cases of fire safety, working with the fire service in relation to flats above commercial properties, 2 in Market Harborough and 1 in Broughton Astley, where we had to serve a prohibition order to prohibit the use. We're working closely with the housing team on the up and coming implementation of the Renters' Right Act, which brings in a lot of changes to housing legislation for both landlords and tenants over the coming years. We've employed a dedicated officer to take charge of this work for us, working across both teams, and they start in February. Customer services team, book appointments have for customers who have a need to meet with a customer service advisor in person were previously available 2 days a week. These are now also available on Fridays, providing customers with more choice. There are plans to offer some customer service outreach sessions in the new year, with customer service staff attending some events alongside the council's community engagement team, and it's hoped that these information sessions will help to address customer concerns or queries about payment of council tax, queries about subscriptions to the garden waste services, and other questions they may have about our services. The customer service team is working closely with the community engagement team to capture and map customer insights about needs and existing services provided by community groups and other agencies, and identify any gaps in service provision in the district. The Lightbulb service helps support residents of Leicestershire to remain safe and well in their own homes. Lightbulb brings together a range of support such as aids and adaptations, energy advice, home safety, home improvements, and support with the transition from hospital to home. The Lightbulb service is delivered on our behalf by Blaby District Council. Officers have submitted a response to the government's technical consultation on the Disabled Facilities Grant allocations formula. Updates are received quarterly for Lightbulb, and officers have attended operational and executive board meetings. Moving to the Youth Council, since being established in January this year, the Youth Council has progressed really well with monthly meetings rotating between Market Harborough and Lutterworth. It's really important that the Youth Council is fully shaped by young people, and it is, with the young people themselves deciding on the frequency and locations of meetings. The Youth Council decided that they wanted a chair, vice chair, secretary and treasurer, as well as a communications and media officer and an outreach and inclusion officer. After an online campaign and voting process in November, young people have been appointed to these roles, and the council is supporting the Youth Council leadership team on what they'd like to achieve during their time in their roles and how they'd like to shape their roles. Currently, there are 28 young people who are signed up to be the Youth Council, who come from different schools across the district. Each month, attendees at the meeting vary from between 12 and 20 due to the young people's other commitments and exam season, etc. They've been asked why they would like to be part of the Youth Council, and the reasons given are to make a difference, to have a voice in council decisions, for personal growth, learning, development, and they work on key areas like skills and opportunities and the environment. They've identified their top priorities as more job opportunities and skills for young people, tackling pollution and climate change, improving health and well-being, addressing loneliness, poverty, access to affordable and suitable housing, protecting nature and green spaces. To ensure their voices are heard, the Youth Council has been involved in various consultations and engagement activities, including the local plan consultation, Tiny Forests, the Government's National Youth Strategy consultation, our Community Awards judging panel for Young Person of the Year. They undertook volunteering opportunities at the Market Harborough Carnival, the Youth Council logo design competition in collaboration with Speak Out magazine, the LGR consultation, our community wellbeing plan consultation, and we've also produced a Youth Council promotional video. Looking ahead, the Youth Council will be working with officers on refreshing the Council's Youth Opportunities Plan to bring this up to date to ensure it meets the needs of young people in our district. Some human resources, learning and development issues. Since April to date, the HR team have managed over 60 recruitment campaigns. This includes a new post agreed in the 25-26 budget, and also roles that became vacant due to a number of internal movers and promotions. a total of 29 promotions and internal moves since April to date. Teams introduced new staff benefits schemes requested by staff in an annual staff survey. This is to do with support with financial advice and planning, and there's also been an introduction of a pensions AVC salary sacrifice scheme as approved by council, which supports officers to invest more of their salaries for their retirement. We have revised our suicide prevention course and relaunched to all officers. With the increase in suicides in our district recently, we are encouraging as many officers as possible to complete the training, particularly those who are front-facing. The course is also recommended for councillors to complete. The team has recently represented the council at the Montfort University Careers event coordinated by East Midlands Councils on behalf of all of the Leicestershire districts, boroughs and Rutland County Council. This is part of an initiative commissioned by the Chief Executives to promote recruitment and retention in local authorities. Similar events have been attended recently at Leicester University and Loughborough University. Funded by the government and run by the LGA, the National Recruitment Campaign will be running again on the 5th of January and the 15th of February. Supported by the communications team, promotion of the council's vacancies and careers in local government will take place throughout the campaign using various media. Council's been encouraging staff to get a flu jab. We start the promote the flu jab at the beginning of the winter season. With the NHS dealing with 50% more cases at this time in 2024, it's important that we encourage a good take-up to protect staff and those in our communities that they come in contact with. Since we launched the Mental Health First Aiders course in 2018, to date we've trained a total of 126 people. 17 have been done in the last 12 months. We are halfway through the completion of another internal team leader development programme and are fully booked for the 26-27 programme. Cases of domestic abuse are increasing in our district, so the team have revised and will soon be promoting our domestic abuse policy and learning pool module. Strongly recommended for all officers to complete, and it will also be available for counsellors. We had over 90 nominations for our annual Stars Awards this year, where we celebrate and recognise staff for their hard work and great initiatives and projects over the past 12 months. Winners were announced at the Star events yesterday, and congratulations to all winners and everyone that was nominated. The Council's new Staff Values View were launched in November. These were devised by officers, and these will replace the STARS values in 2026. A lot is planned throughout 2026 to celebrate the Council before the transition to a new unitary due to LGR. The designated safeguarding officers have handled 74 safeguarding referrals in the last 12 months. Referrals related to both adults and children, and for a whole range of issues and concerns, including mental ill health, crises and domestic abuse, which is on the rise in our district. Work has been completed with Leicestershire County Council's local area coordinators to produce winter support information leaflets for residents who may need access, local additional help and support during the winter months. And the Council's Equality and Diversity Officer, as part of an LGR workstream, was key in finalising the LGR Equality Impact Analysis submission, which provided clearer demographic data. With that, thank you very much for your time. That was useful.
Thank you, Councillor Beadle. I think we'll open up to questions, and I think Councillor Dr. Bremner, you mentioned.
Just few comments and queries. The first line, actually, the election team has held several by-elections. I think as we move forward, the current term of this council is 2027, when people were elected for a 4-year term. But the councils will be asked to stay on until 2028. So some councils may feel that they've done their term and they don't want to continue for another year. So how is the council going to prepare for that in terms of the team, the elections team, etc. Because that could become quite a heavy workload. The issue around the legal services team, I can see why that is difficult to recruit, but it impacts other areas which really concerns councils, such as the Section 106 agreements, and that is a concern. And I just want to emphasise the concern on that one. On your second page, you had the housing team have increased the council portfolio of owned and leased properties using temporary accommodation from 8 to 18. But there's no indication of the cost of that in the report. If the council is buying more properties, and that would be interesting to know. The great news in your report, I think, is the youth council. I think that's to be applauded. I think the more young people involved in politics and the local authorities is a really good thing, and I hope that goes from strength to strength. And finally, on a sad note, the suicide prevention, I would strongly support councillors to undertake that training, because I had a friend that committed suicide about 20 years ago. He was a very successful scientist, didn't seem to have a problem, but there must have been something there. And I think suicide is hidden unless it's talked about. And I think the more it's talked about, the better. So that's a really good thing. And that's all. Thank you. Oh, just one more thing. As I'm subbing, and I've not met you, Councillor Beadle, on this panel before, may I just offer that such a lengthy report, if members have received it beforehand, you give a summary of what you are feeling is the high points of your report, and then members can have read it and come prepared with questions to you. Because I think reading it all the way through must have been tiring for you and tiring for us. So I think it would be an easier, more productive meeting, I think, in that way.
Thank you. On that, yeah, I'll take that on board. I know it was circulated yesterday or the day before, I think, but yeah, noted. Yeah, I think you raised very good points about the issue around by-elections and the potential for more of them. I'm not sure if there's been much work done at this stage around that possibility. I think it's a lot of it will fall to the individual's viewpoints. Some people will be more than happy to stay on 4 years, 5 years. It's for them to sort of manage, but it is something we probably do need to look at. Of course, yeah. No, thank you. The legal side is something that has been very well aware of recruiting into legal officers, especially senior ones. It's not just for this district. I think it's across the country. We've tried multiple times with recruitment events, incentives, trying to incentivize and make it as attractive as package as possible. But I think it's just the reality is that if you're a senior legal expert in that field, it's probably more beneficial to yourself to be a consultant basis, as a locum. But it is something we are aware of, and we're trying again in the new year, maybe partnering with another authority on services as well. The cost of the housing, that is, I don't know if Clive got it to hand, but it will all be, it's all available at some point. We can perhaps later write to you with that. Thank you for your comments around the youth council, and around the suicide prevention training as well. Very, very important. I'll fully echo that support. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Councillor Graves in just one moment. I think, Leah, did you have a potential answer for the legal side of things?
I was more focused on the elections side and the query about by-elections and resourcing. That's okay. I think it is always a tricky one to plan for what you don't know as to what might happen. I have seen elsewhere when there's been this scenario, some reasonably frank and honest conversations with members of saying, look, if you are thinking that extra year is too much for you, then we will be having all-out parish and town elections as well as potentially shadow authority elections in May 2027. So if you're looking to stand down, that's a great opportunity for us to combine those elections together because it's less onerous than adding in another by-election. There will also be a point in time, and we don't know when that will be yet. It's usually 6 months before, it might be a bit further out, where we won't be able to have any more by-elections as well. So there will be a point in time where this problem does go away, but I will say the elections team are one of the most efficient and effective at running by-elections I've seen here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graves, you're next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies to my croaky voice. It will assist me being brief tonight. I, for one, will be seeing this out to the end, so I can commit to that tonight. I did whisper to my colleague here, I think the last year, if it is a special extra year, I think it's going to be very different because some people in the know will appreciate that the government will start placing heavy restrictions on us. We can't just go and invest in this and spend money on that. So it might be an unusual year, but let's wait and see what the central government decides to do. I've just got a few points. If I can make them all in one go, and then more than happy to have any feedback. Yeah, very good news to hear that the member development group is going to be reconvened, even with the local government review. We're conscious that we're not exactly going to do big plans for 3 years' time, but I think there's always little things that we can come up with great suggestions for or ideas. I know there's been some really good suggestions recently on making the broadband allowance just much more efficient. Saves members time, saves staff time, keep going through numerous expenses. So there's some really good ideas that can come up. So I was disappointed that got mothballed at some point a year or two ago. Secondly, regarding the overgrowth, I'd be really interested to know, this is on the environment team, first bullet point, whether there's any extra powers that have arrived, because I know for a number of board members, this has been a real point of contention. I've only ever had one or two, and they were many years ago, but I know some members have got present issues. I mean, it makes it sound as if it's been quite straightforward in this point, but I know some members struggle for years to sort out particular problem houses. So I suppose my question there is there any extra new powers that have come about, or is it just a rewording of what we already do? The last point in the environment team section was the very last line said working across both teams. Do you mean the environment team and the housing team? I'd be interested to know what the full extra dedicated officer will be spending their time doing. So yes, we know the Renters' Rights Act is coming in, but I mean practically what might that mean for our extra staff member that we pretty much, I mean, have we had to recruit them, or did we decide to improve the quality? I'd be really curious about that. On the youth council mentioned by Councillor Bremner, I'm just interested to know what's the debate like? What's the vibe in the room? Have you got a lot of louder, confident voices, young people champing at the bit to make their points, queuing up at a microphone, or is it much quieter? So I don't know if you're able to just give a little bit of feedback as to what it feels like in the room. I'd be really, really interested in that. Yes, that's it for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beadle. Would you like to come back on those questions?
Yeah, thank you. The first point about member development. Sorry, I'll try to make them. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. Around the environment team, I think there's been an extra focus on that with the opportunities that have been taken with the Renters' Rights Act, the new legislation that's come in. We've seen an opportunity to have that extra officer post. I think we should see that bearing fruit. Your specific question around actual legislation changes, I might leave that or ask perhaps Leah to come in with anything specific on any legal obligations regarding that. Could I do that now? Yes.
Leah, do you have something to come back with on that point?
I think it might be the housing team might be a better place to respond to that one specifically. There have been quite a few changes in that sector, but because they don't cross over into my environment too much, then they're not ones I've kept abreast of to be able to sit here and advise you today. So if you, I'll perhaps defer that back to my colleagues in housing to get back to you in at a later date.
Thank you. So we'll ask them for a response. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that, Leah. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, the youth council, by all accounts, I mean, it's details in there in the update. Good. We see that as a good take up. 28 people is probably a regular turnout of at least half of them attended each meeting. The enthusiasm's there. They're keen to get their offices posts filled. They have done that. They've set out what they want to achieve. It's just to be applauded. Yeah, didn't have anything else further to add to that.
Thank you. I'll just bring Clive in briefly. I think Clive has something to contribute there.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Graves asked a question in respect of the renters' rights post. That was approved at last year's budget, and it's just fulfilling that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor King, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So before going on, just noticed a couple of things. So first of all, just need to declare I'm chairman of the Leicestershire Local Pension Committee. As mentioned, ABC's there, so I just need to mention that. And the second thing, and also about area coordinators as well. Thanks, Councillor Beadle, for his answers. Reiterate what Councillor Bremner said earlier about would have been extremely helpful if we hadn't spent 20 minutes listening to the dulcet tones of Councillor Beadle, and I'm sure, as pleasant as it was, would have given us an additional 20 minutes of our meeting if we'd just taken it as read. But that being said, all the points that have been made, but a couple of things I wanted to ask about. The member development group. So is this going to be a politically balanced group, or is this, where exactly is the member development group going to report? How is this going to work? What are the terms of reference going to be? Who's going to agree this? I think we need a bit more information about, we're just going to reconvene it. To do what exactly? And that's an important thing. In terms of the legal services, that's very disappointing to hear that the head of legal services has left, very experienced officer, and we're now relying on interim, very expensive interim and locums. That's an incredibly expensive thing to do. I would like to see us get a proper full report about this and to what the plan is to get this sorted out. This has been a long-standing problem with this authority, as more experienced colleagues will know. We've had severe delays, as has been mentioned, to Section 106 agreements and other issues, and it's just not acceptable to carry on in this vein. I think we do need a proper plan, and this should be brought back to scrutiny if that's appropriate, or to another committee of the council to look at. So just moving on then to the housing, I'd agree with what's been said so far. I think on the one hand, yes, having temporary accommodation to house people is okay to an extent. What I'm concerned about is what are the drivers of homelessness. Now, one of the drivers, yes, it is relationship breakdowns and all of that. But is it because also private landlords are leaving the marketplace? And is that because of various government policies, including the current government, which are making it less attractive financially for private landlords to actually rent out properties? because historically Harborough had a very healthy private landlord marketplace, private tenancy marketplace. That's why our homeless requirement was historically not very high. So I think we do need a deeper dive here into exactly what's driving this. It's very easy, not easy, but yes, there is more relationship breakdowns. But is it all that, or is it the fact that, as I said, private landlords leaving the market? And that's more concerning because, you know, in another part of the reports later on, it talks about how affordable housing delivery is an all-time low because of the state of the housing market. So coming to the environment team, I find this incredibly disappointing to see that there is no reporting here at all about what the council's doing about fly tipping and illegal waste dumping, given the fact that council, as was mentioned, have just taken out a legal enforcement notice on another site, which is associated with that in the west of the district. This is quite surprising to see that we haven't mentioned this at all in the portfolio holders report. Empty property officer. Well, okay, but what exactly are they going to do as an empty property officer? And if empty properties are brought back into use, does that mean the empty property officer gets made redundant and we don't need them anymore? I mean, that's kind of, you know, if they meet the requirement, do they then actually not have a job to do? If they can put it like that. And then, I mean, the same with this landlords thing. I don't really understand what we need a full-time dedicated officer to take charge. If we've got a housing team already of several people, what do we need an additional person for to specifically deal with landlords and tenants for? I mean, I think more information on this would have been helpful. I mean, I appreciate what Clive said. It was in the budget last year, but we don't seem to have got any more details about what they're going to do. In terms of the youth council, I mean, great, but what would be really helpful is to understand which schools in the district are involved. It just talks about Market Harbour and Lutterworth, but last time I checked, there's schools all over there's schools in Kibworth, there's schools in other parts of the district where children go to Broughton Astley. Where are these kids coming from? And 28. Well, obviously, are they self-appointed or are they? How do they? I mean, get onto this youth council? So I think, and the other thing for me, I'm not dismissing what's being done, but how exactly is the view of the youth council feeding into decisions we make here at Harbour District Council? Because to my mind, I've not seen anything highlighted in any report or mentioned by any cabinet member that the youth council view is X about a particular issue. And if it is, well, it was so unnoticeable that we didn't notice it or somebody didn't highlight it. So I'm not dismissing that. It is important, but if it's that important, it needs pointing out to us that they are making a contribution. And here it does say that they have given some views about, for example, the local plan. Well, I don't know what their view was because I don't recall seeing it, but that would just be helpful. I think that'll do for now, Chair, but that was basically what I had to say, and hopefully the portfolio holder can give us a few clarifications on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Leah is happy to come in on any of those points. Do you want me to bring Leah in now? And yeah, Leah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't planning on addressing all the points raised by Councillor Kim, but there's a few areas where I might be able to provide some further information. So in terms of the legal posts you mentioned, yes, that is a matter we are taking very seriously. It is a national problem. There is a genuine shortage of experienced lawyers in local government, and so it is a challenging market. We are talking to recruiters and getting their advice on how to approach this recruitment with the intention that we will be looking to move that forward in the new year, supported by professional agencies to really hope and hopefully get a positive outcome. In terms of member development group, there was a member development group previously. There were terms of reference that were agreed by Cabinet in 2023. This did include members from the opposition. So the intention would be to operate in line with those terms of reference, but we can work on the membership of it in case that does need to change. And I was just going to cover the environmental services. So that's a different portfolio. That's Councillor Woodward's portfolio, hence why it's not included in this portfolio update. And that would go to the Services and Communities panel.
Thank you, Leah. On the other matters that Councillor King raised,
I think you were asking for more information around some of the officer roles, the new officer roles.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you haven't got that now, I don't imagine you have it now, but it is something that could be sent round to all the members of the committee afterwards.
Yep.
Through you, Chair. In respect of the empty properties post, that was approved in the budget last year. It was a 2-year fixed term contract.
What are they going to do, if I can make it ask?
Well, in respect of what my understanding is that they are going to
How is the
review.
success or otherwise of that role going to be determined?
Well, I don't have that detail specifically.
Well, that's what I want to know, is how is the success of these roles going to be determined? What difference are they? It's the so what, isn't it? So what difference is it going to make by employing that person? I'm obviously not the individual, but just having that role, what difference does it make? Does it make any difference to empty properties or not? If it makes no difference, then presumably the role is irrelevant and we should get rid of it.
I completely agree, Councillor King, and I'm sure that there is a complete relevance to the role. But your other part of your question was it a permanent role or was it a fixed term contract?
No.
And that's the bit I'm answering for you.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anything else to come back with there?
I don't think so. You just mentioned about the schools for the youth council. Implied it was just Lutterworth and Market Harbour. I did say that the schools involved were coming across the district, but if you want the details of each of the schools, I can get that to you as well.
That'd be great. I'm sure all colleagues would like to receive that.
Thank you. Councillor Moder, you have your hand.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things. Firstly, the roles that we just discussed, they've got to be there for a reason. They've got to add value, and it would be nice to have those questions answered, because if there are positions there that are being paid for, if they're not adding value at the end of it, then there's no point in having them, quite bluntly. It's got to be run as a business, and that's sort of the bottom line. Secondly, a question for Leah. Regarding the legal staff that we're struggling to employ, is that because we're just not paying a competitive salary, or is it just the fact that they're going elsewhere? I mean, are we the only ones that are in this position?
Chair, may I respond?
Yes, please do.
We are not the only ones in this position. There is a national shortage of legal staff for local government. Our roles are not out, our salaries are not out of kilter with local government sector. There is a reality commercial sector can pay more than what we have, but one of the key problems is the local market is so strong that lawyers know they can become a locum and effectively charge more rather than be an in-house lawyer, albeit that comes with its own benefits and certainties and securities. So the feedback we're getting is we're doing a lot of things right in terms of those posts, the salaries, what we're offering, but it is just such a difficult market to recruit to because there is such a national shortage of staff.
Thank you, Leah. That's interesting to know. And finally, just a question to Councillor Beadle regarding the suicide prevention course. What format does this course take? I mean, who's actually the trainers, and how does it? Because it says here the course is also recommended for councillors to complete too.
Thank you.
Yes, I will. It's been relaunched. Yes, I'll get that sent across to all members again. That might go out as a reminder and refresher to all members and how to access that. Thank you.
So I take it that it's some sort of online course rather than an in-person.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, the only reason I ask is because my husband's a Samaritan. He's been a Samaritan for 10 years, and he actually is a recruiter of Samaritans, and he holds drives to recruit, and he trains Samaritans as well. So I don't know whether you get somebody like that in to train people, or whether it's, you know, because he could arrange, I mean, I'm not saying him personally, but the organization could help in that respect and send someone in, because I know that they do a drive every 3 months, and he's recruited numerous new Samaritans. It may just be something that might be of interest to the council.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I will take that away and discuss that with officers after. Thank you.
Leah, did you want to come in at that point? No?
No, Councillor Beadle confirmed it is e-learning. For the suicide prevention, I've put down a note myself to recirculate that information to councillors.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reassure you, just a brief point, if I may, because I think it was in one of the budgets I may have presented that the empty properties officer was in. I do remember inquiring about it at the time. Personally, I've been aware of a couple of empty properties. One was an elderly relative who got too infirm to live there, and after some convincing, after 1 year, he agreed to sell it. As my grandfather. So many of them are health issues where the person has had to vacate temporarily into hospital or a home or a relative's house. The officer can potentially have some impact there, but I think, quite frankly, that's overtaken by the more penalising council tax now, where the council tax rates for empty properties are just going to go up and up and up. And I think that's going to have more of an effect than an officer once a month saying what's happening. And secondly, under power of attorney, I've been trying to get the Court of Protection to agree that I can sell my aunt's house, which has been vacant for 2 years, but the court is so backed up then that we've been waiting for a court order now for 1 year, and the court is so backed up they've not been able to provide it. So yeah, just a couple of little examples. It might be that the empty property officer, after 6 months, gets round the whole empty property stock in the district and then says, there's not a lot more I can do. There's these 20% that I could make regular contact of, but the other 80%, the relatives know what's going on. They're desperate to sell. They're all keen to do it. So yeah, it does need a monitoring, a checking, but it is something that may come actually to a quicker end than you think. Thank you.
Thank you. I think just in relation to that, Councillor Beadle, if we could get an answer on that and sent through, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Councillor Knight.
It's just to say that I have got a little bit of information on empty properties within my performance report later on. I can refer to that later if you wish. I don't need to do it now, but just to say that there is a little bit more on that.
Thank you very much. Any members got any more questions for Councillor Beadle? No, thank you very much, Councillor Beadle. So we move on to the next item on the agenda tonight, which is item number 5, which is the performance report for Q2 year ending 31st of March 2026. That was this year. So I am going to actually pass over to Councillor Knight to introduce the report. And then we've got Sean and Kay here as well to go through further details.
Evening, everybody. So this is the combined financial performance outturn and corporate performance report. Sets out the forecast financial position for the year ending 31st March 2026 for review and capital and CORE's performance monitoring of the refreshed corporate plan Q2 July to September 2025, and this report is considered was considered for cabinet on the 1st of December this year. Revenue forecasts to be overspent 150k, a variance of 1% to the approved budget. Capital is forecast to slip 11.6 million, a variance of 48% to the approved budget. And a refresh of the corporate plan key activities was undertaken prior to the 1st of April 2025, resulting in 18 key activities for 25-26 period. First plan 25-26 prior 18 key activities, all of which have achieved green status for this period. More details are provided in appendix from page 25 of 94 in your pack. 4 KPIs are noted on page 16 of 94 in the pack for their high level performance against target in Q2. These include payments of creditors, which is back over 90%, planning determination levels of litter and detritus, interventions to bring back empty properties. 5 out of 19 key performance indicators have red status. However, 2 of these are, and that's on SPO1 and O2. These are annual targets and therefore not reported in this quarter report. The other are listed on page 17 of the 94. The full report is from page 39. Cabinet is recommending to consider and comment on the report supporting robust performance monitoring and financial governance as required by the Council's performance management framework. So on the empty properties, can I just bring you to para 3.144, RS 14 interventions to bring back into use empty homes. Over the course of 25-26 period, more work has been undertaken to focus in this area. A new post has been recruited to, and over the last quarter, more interventions were completed. So it's expected that this will continue to rise with the new officers starting. So there's 14 interventions so far. And just to say that I know of 2 in Lutterworth, which are long-term empty properties, which have been there for as long as I've been alive, I always think. So I very much hope that the work will continue on empty properties. I think it's a very important role within our district. That's it for me. I'm happy to.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to hear from Sean. Or shall we open it straight to questions? Yeah. Can I just ask, when you do ask a question about the report in general, if you could reference the page number, please? It does make it easier for members to just keep track of what it is that we're reading. I know we had a bit of a debacle last time when we were doing the reports, looking for which page to read from. Councillor.
Just a quick question about the empty properties. What is the format? Do people email in and say, I know of an empty property? Is there a register? Do we have a list of them? How does that work? Because I go past some as well. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, can I pass that to Kay?
Good evening. Obviously, I don't work in regulatory services, but what I know from the data is that we do hold a list of all of the empty properties that are known to us around districts, and people, I believe, can report those into us. And then in terms of interventions, there is a framework of levels of interventions that we do with empty house property owners. So when we talk about interventions, it could be any one of that range of interventions. So in the more detailed part of the report, it will say the number of interventions and then the number of properties, because it might be that one property has had 3 or 4 interventions in a month. And that could be anything from an initial contact telephone call through to a letter, through to a visit, or any of those things generally.
But if they're empty, who answers the door or the phone or the letter?
So essentially, they do some background work around people who where the person is that has owned the property. So like Councillor Graves said, it might be that we find out that they're in a hospital, there's a relative, a neighbour might know where the person's moved to. So they do some of those initial background checks first.
Thank you very much. If anybody is watching online, you can contact environment at harbour.gov.uk if you know of a empty property and you'd like to get it investigated. So that is environment at harbour.gov.uk. Councillor Scott.
Well, it's a very simple inquiry, actually. I was looking at the report authors, and Sean is obviously one of them, and Rob Chu, Head of ICT and Transformation. Aren't there other officers that do number crunching and would actually be able to use the dashboards that one would get this information from?
I'll pass through.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So when we put the report authors here, it's usually the respective head of service. So yeah, there are many reports. There's usually a multitude of people who contribute to a report, but on here otherwise, instead of having a big theatre list, we usually speak to the respective director or head of service. Simple as that.
So Rob Chu would just have overseen it. He wouldn't actually been doing the work.
The
number
work. So Rob Chu is Kay's boss. But Kay's here because Kay does this on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much for that explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dr. Bremner. Page 15. Thanks. It's been a forecast slippage in capital of 11.61 million, representing 28% of the budget for 2026. Little table below lacks some information. Doesn't actually tell you whether that's 339 on a forecast or 339,000. Sorry. And under the asset category, it gets a bit untransparent. Assets. What assets? Cemeteries and burials, that's clear. Civic buildings, well, we're in one. Infrastructure, very vague. Waste is really clear. And also, in terms of those numbers, I know we're taking it 25, 26, but there would be an expectation, certainly on civic building, that the work that's being done on the building, which is probably resulting in that slippage, the building will be enhanced in value. So that number will change over time, but there are some comments you might want to.
Thank you.
Couple of chairs
sorry, just a reminder when you're speaking, just make sure your microphone is on.
So the detail on the capital report, absolutely take a vote that there should say thousands on there. But the details are the budget on page 20 in the appendix and the detail on 23. The detail page 23.
In respect of valuations, that we're not looking at valuations here. We're looking at the cost of the works in the capital programme, which was originally agreed back in February. So,
yeah, leave that with you guys.
Okay, with a fair wind, these works will enhance the value of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, I was going to raise that point as well. I think the categories in the asset category are incredibly vague. even on the page 20 that Sean's just referred to, it's not terribly clear what infrastructure is.
So
what does that mean?
I'm going to have a point of information. The table on page 20 does not reflect the table on page 20 on page 15 because it's different service areas.
Well, anyway, if I may, Chair, I do think that needs a little bit more transparency, if I can put it like that. And that would help aid our discussions. But if I can just come back to what I was going to just raise. So on the, and I appreciate this has already been to Cabinet last week, but obviously their comments aren't attached. So first of all, just to go to the status of the strategic performance dashboard, under on page 16, line 3.14.2, DMO1, the target is 60% of major applications determined within 13 weeks or agreed. Now, I'm very sure the Chair, Planning and others will be very delighted this is 87.5%. However, what that then concerns me is, are we actually overpaying to deliver a much higher performance than the target that we're actually required to deliver? If so, are we going to increase the target, or are we going to reduce down the delivery to nearer to the target? Because to me, it's a pointless having a target like that if we're achieving 87.5%. So I think there does need to either be a different target. I know that's the minimum target set by government, so I appreciate that's why we've set it at that. But if we're going to have a target that's low, because it just looks like we're very, anyway, that's just a kind of thing. In terms of what I was asking the Councillor Beadle earlier, in paragraph 3 on line 315.1 and 315.2, it talks about the affordable housing completions. Now, if you go to the key activity quarterly report listings, and you look at the right page, which is page, I'm going to find it now. It is page 39, SPO1. It says there's only 14 completions of affordable housing in the first half of the year. The target's 185. There is no explanation of how we're going to, what we're doing to address that. Now, I know part of the reason for that is because we've got a lower housing delivery because of the collapse of the 5-year housing supply. However, that's not the only factor that influences delivery of affordable housing. And so tying this up with the increase in homelessness, which was mentioned by the Councillor Beadle in his report, due to the number of private landlords ending rentals, I do think we need to understand the interrelationship and what's going on here between rentals being ended because landlords are dropping out the marketplace because of increased regulation, increased financial burden, taxation regime changes, etc., on them, and because then there's a failure from the marketplace to deliver new affordable housing, because 14, that's historically a very low figure for us. So what are we doing then to work with? Now, I know we used to employ someone to do this strategic housing enabling. I haven't heard anything about what they're doing or what we're doing to encourage RPs to bring forward schemes, apart from in locations which are not sustainable. But what is the strategy and what is the plan? And we've got no detail here. So I think this is really important. Rather than the council going around buying up lots of properties to house people temporarily, people want permanent places to live. They want a place they can call their own, whether it's a rental or one that they own. So I think this is really important. And at the moment, we've got a lack of clarity about this. So that's the one bit I wanted to ask about, and whether we'd be able to have or get a report on that. The second thing is just in 315.5 FSO2, the establishment and agency costs, they're about 500,000 nearly over the quarter target. And I'm just wondering what's been done to get that back on track, because obviously that's a big contribution to the 150k the 1% over budget that we're in. So I was wondering what's going to be done about that to get that back on track. And the other thing which I just wanted to reiterate is when you look at the Appendix 1 and just going back to what the MTFS that was set out earlier this year, I know this is going to change radically, but what this does show is that the council's forward plan budget at the moment in year is based on massive contributions from reserves in the latter part of the MTFS. And also a 22% increase in the council tax. I accept that some of that will come back about organically from the number of the houses increasing, but overall it is a very, very significant increase in council tax that's required, as well as huge expenditure from reserves just to stay the status quo and not do anything different to what we're doing now. And I think that, Chair, to be fair, that's not a sustainable position. And so I do hope that's been taken into account by the Cabinet in their budget planning coming forward, and they're not going to come forward with another fantasy budget like this because it's not sustainable in the long term. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes. So there's questions there about items 3.151 about the affordable housing completions and the strategy regarding those housing generally and the lack of affordable housing, and then the item at the end 3.15.5 as well. Who'd like to take that?
I can contribute something towards the SPO1 figure about affordable houses. So this is an update only figure for Q2 because we report on it at the end of full financial year, and that is because of some of the ways that we account for the figures. We can't have access to that figure until the end of the financial year. So it could be higher than 40, but at the moment we can't estimate that until later into the financial year, just because of the way that new house builds come on to affordable homes. Raj is still in the authority and takes the lead on strategic housing. There was a strategic housing summit earlier in the year that members may have been around for, and out of that they are developing a strategic housing sort of framework to look at how we can develop on those numbers, because in previous years we have exceeded the target. In terms of establishment costs, I might hand that over to my colleagues here.
There's a couple of drivers around the establishment costs being a red KPI. So the first is that there has been some specific agency costs that are detailed in the reports through I think it's the Appendix 2. So there's the accounting services, that is the accounts recovery team, and then as we discussed, the locums in legal and democratic services have pushed that up a little bit earlier in the year. I think the other side of it is that we've got the target hasn't really moved since last year when we've put more post into the establishment. So that target is probably lower than it should be to reflect where we are in the budget. So there is a little bit of a gap in there where I think it would be useful to revise the target so that it more closely aligns with the budget.
Thank you. There was also the question of the council tax as well, and the situation with sustainability. That's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Actually, yeah, it's just really, Clive, could you come in on that?
Yeah,
please.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we do have a sustainable budget at this point in time, and it does rely on use of reserves, but that's what the report showed in February. The Section 25 report confirmed that. I don't know what else to say, really. It was an approved budget and it was financially sustainable over the medium term.
If I may, Chair, I wasn't really looking for section 151 answer. I was looking for a political answer as to whether which council I might duct. Unfortunately, which I don't think was fair on you. But what I do want to ask, Chair, is I do think, thank you, Sean, for your details on that, on the payroll, but I actually think what would be helpful is if we could have a more detailed breakdown of these agency and locum costs that council's actually incurring, and we could actually see that and what areas we're actually spending this money in and what's being done to address this, because it isn't healthy for any organisation to rely on temporary staff or agencies or interims for any long period of time. Everyone knows that. It is not a good practice. We've been doing that for far too long in certain key areas of the council's activity, even when I was leader of the council, that's going back, 3 years ago. And we don't seem to have moved on, and now we're being told it's national shortage. Mind you, I was going to say, mind you, if the Prime Minister shuts down all the courts, then maybe we'll have lots of lawyers looking for work, but that maybe they will be trained in the right areas. But I mean, the other thing is, what are we doing to train more people to work in this area? I mean, what's been done? I mean, what we're hearing is there's a shortage. Okay, well, what's been done to address that and train more people or get them in? Because you can't just drum people about nothing, can you? I mean, that's So I mean, I appreciate I may be answering my own question, but I just feel that we're not really. It isn't just happened overnight. This has been going on for quite some time, and I think the finance director knows that. So I know that. Thank you.
I think Sean's just going to come back first, and then.
So on the accountancy services side, I'm quite happy to tell you that we now have a full structure of permanent staff. So we've gone from, I think, 7 vacancies when I arrived 8 months ago to now it's fully permanent staff with some specific support still in there.
Thank you. Do you still want to come in? No. Councillor Graves.
Thank you. If I could reference the unders and overs appendix 2, pages 21 and 22, for the benefit of Councillor Bremner, and everyone actually. And hopefully, in response to Councillor King and for the benefit of Councillor Knight, I'll start off with sort of an overall political question and pointing out the figures really, which is, if you take the second, if you look at the middle column, 25-26 forecast variance, this is the column where I've got a lot of pen markings and circles, which I might add would be extremely challenging to do on an electronic editor, but it takes 1 second per figure with a pen. But if you go down to the second yellow line, it's normally where I start, because the good times are still rolling for interest income, and we are 700,000 over budget. The budget figure is good to see, a strong budget figure in there. It's frustrating when we have sort of, $1 million extra gain, and the budget was on 100,000 or something. But no, a strong budget figure, but we are 700 up. But given the overall total report is 150 down, that means the 700 interest income means that there's £850,000 of overspends in the first in this first Q2 report. So I just wanted to go through some of those, and I think for Councillor Knight, this potentially is moving into the political territory really, which is this really sustainable? It doesn't look like it. 850k of overspends. It depends what each one is. So starting with the 68, I think we've covered that, the legal locum cover. If I could, Chair, if I could sort of ask a few questions back to back and then sit back and then hear responses, if that's going to be okay, maybe quicker.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So interested in the procurement figure of 55k overspend. I've read the explanation, but I'm not really any the wiser as to what that means. So I'd be grateful for a bit more information on the department or type of spend or that sort of thing. Accountancy services, I think you've referenced that a bit. Are you expecting that to plateau or even get better? Is it lanced? Is it finished, or might it still grow? Housing benefits. I mean, I've been here many years, and I've never remembered a time before where we get any significant figure for housing benefits, because I was always led to believe, and I think this probably did happen in the past, that the government funding came in to cover the costs and responsibilities we had going out. So I am curious to know why we keep seeing overspends come through, and I don't fully understand that. I know I've asked it before, I know I've had an explanation before, but I don't fully understand why we can't seem to get that to zero. Is it the sign of the times? So I'm interested in that one. Excuse me, my voice is gradually giving up. And then, yes, some concerns over multiple costs really in the green section for communities and well-being. I think others in the room probably know a bit more than me in terms of what some of those are. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I mean, that's a whole section in communities and well-being that it would be good to have a bit more information of. I think in some of these previous quarterly reports, there was a bit more narrative explanation. So you had a little two-liner on one of these figures, then another two-liner on another one. And I noticed we're very slender on that this time, and we're not really doing that. Maybe it would be good to have either a bit more narrative in these boxes. But anyway, I'll leave those questions there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean, do you want to come in on the first point? Yes, thanks, Chair. So I'll start at the start. So the interest income. So we had the Treasury Management report that went to Cabinet alongside this report. Went in a bit more detail about where we are with that. So I think the longer term forecast is that it's going to come down to around the budgeted level quite quickly. I think now that the interest rates are coming down to that level, I think 700,000 is where we are still expecting it to be in the intervening period. So I think that's probably, if there is any remaining movement, it's probably going to be in the tens of thousands rather than the hundreds, as it has been in the last few accountancy services. I think the expectation there is that there might be some small additional costs that come through in this last quarter, because we've got some specific needs to make sure that we're compliant with the audit. And the housing benefits, I can recirculate the note from last night if it helps, but I think the difference is that we have that a gap between the subsidy and the private rented market rate that we have to pay the gap towards. I think previously, I think only a couple of years ago, that gap was close enough. I think it's grown over the last couple of years. So we're now on the hook for that gap between the subsidy and what we.
Chair, just on that really important point, can I just ask, does that imply then that in the last 2 years, there's the private rent paid has just massively exceeded or significantly exceeded the government grant funding, and that didn't happen maybe in the previous 10 or more years?
Right, so each, let's call it geographical area, there's a local housing allowance, and that local housing allowance reflects the sort of average rent in the private sector for a particular area, and you get subsidy on that. So what you said, Councillor Rose, is quite right, that the private rental in the area is exceeding that level by a significant margin. That's the hit we have to carry, and that is getting wider and wider. There is nothing we can do about it.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Yeah, and obviously some of that overspend is also obviously on homelessness, and that is where the increase in the homelessness provision that we have made, the extra properties we've brought in, is now making quite a contribution to that, and it would be considerably more if we were reliant on hotels for homelessness. So I think it's taking up about a third of our provision with the amount of extra homelessness housing we are now providing.
Sean. So the second to last query was on the communities and wellbeing area. So I think a lot of this probably relates to the contract that we have with the environmental service contract. So I think the inflation for that was set during the February budget at a slightly different point to what the index was at April when it was applied. So it ended up coming in at a higher rate across the board for kind of street cleaning, trade refuse, and I think it's the ground maintenance as well. So we've also there was a contract with Rutland in there as well. So we've lost. I think that contract has ended, and so there's an underachievement of income that relates to that. There's also on the recycling side, I think it was the wheelie bins. We have some. I think we didn't phase the expected income from the developers in the way that has been borne out. So I think we were expecting more income from developers in this year. Also going back to procurement, so we had, I think I missed that one at the start, sorry. So in that one, I think that was just an error at year end in terms of the accounting. So that should have been accrued as the 24-25 and 25-26 fees have both been paid in this year rather than last year.
Thank you. I think Councillor King, you're going to come back in.
I did have an additional point to make, Chair, just on this Appendix 2. And just to, I don't like to do this, Councillor Graves, but just to correct you, the actual overspend is 1.265 million. Because actually there are other additional income streams. So when you equate off the additional income streams against the overspend, and you leave with a net 150 overspend, the actual gross overspend was 1.265 million. So therefore, that is deeply concerning at that level of overspend in just the first 6 months of the year. I appreciate net, it's only 150, but actually there's a lot more in this because it's offset by the increased income from car parking, development control, and special projects total, as well as the additional 700k from from the interest. So actually, it is a much big. Now, I appreciate that's not the maybe not how it's been presented, but in broad brush, essentially, we've spent a lot of money in some areas, well overspent, and in 2 or 3 areas, we've just been lucky. The income's been greater than the forecast budget. But what I wanted to ask about was car parking specifically. What I wanted to know is what can we actually have a more detailed breakdown about car parking? This is a major income stream to the council. I believe there's supposed to be a car parking income account or something that's supposed to be produced every year. I don't recall ever seeing one for quite some time. Perhaps it's buried on the website somewhere out of the way so no one can see it. But not deliberately, of course. But it'd just be useful if we could, we could see a bit more detail on this, what the ins and outs are and where the surplus money is actually being applied to. I think that would help improve transparency, given that the council's just installed a raft of new car parking machines. I'm not sure if they're all working yet, but they're out there, aren't they? And it's an important thing, and it does get people very vexed, very vexed, and particularly on the enforcement side. So I know that's problematic. So it'd be really helpful to see a bit more of a detailed breakdown. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. I've been assured we can supply that information. Councillor Marder.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question about what partnerships there are currently in place to support vulnerable residents who are at risk of losing their homes or accommodations. Is there something in place to limit that?
So you just specifically mean people who are about to become homeless, and the support mechanisms are, from my experience with under the homeless sort of in that section, people apply to our, and if they qualify, then we can help house them if they qualify. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, there are quite a section of people that don't qualify. It's
Thank you. I do, I think that with the rise of everything now, there's going to be a lot more of it. We're going to see a vast increase. So it's just concerning that this is how it's going to be going forward, and temporary accommodation costs are not going to remain as they are. They're going to increase as well. So it seems to be something that we've got to monitor and be aware of.
I think what would be probably quite useful is if we can get the housing team to come back with some extra figures in terms of how our homelessness provision is working, the types of people that are applying to us, and just put a little bit of meat on the bone and give some information. Might help to.
I think that would be interesting, just to paint a picture of what, historically and going forward, what it is that we should be looking out for. I mean, really, it would be good to get the list of empty homes register and put some use to those properties that are just lying there doing nothing.
That
Ideal world.
Chair, if I may just come back, that is the whole point of the empty homes strategy, is where we can bring these homes back into use. Either encouraging the owners of the properties to get them back into use. The whole point of it isn't to is to work with people to find out why it's empty, how can we help as a council, and in extreme cases there is the option to either we could compulsory purchase and use it for temporary accommodation. In extreme cases, maybe, but if not, there is also grant money available, whereby we would have, I think it's over a 5-year period, where we would be able to, we'd have sort of first chance to use it for temporary accommodation. So, if somebody has got a home that needs some work doing on it, they can apply for a grant, and then we would be able to use that for temporary accommodation over a period of, I believe, 5 years.
Thank you. I think that would be useful if we could get more information on that, because just looking at the figures, obviously the report that Councillor Beadle presented, a 15% increase over the past 12 months of homeless people, and part of that was due to an increase in the private landlords and in the tenancies, and then we're seeing the cost going up as well in terms of that in the performance indicators for the first quarter. So I think that would be really useful if we could get that information. That'd be good. Sorry, Councillor Scott.
In Appendix 2, page 21, the yellow part, interest and investment income under the resources area, and where we've overachieved there, and it's into the red. My always understanding is it's opposite of that, but in this instance, I understand. Does that include investment and income from S106 that we're sitting on in an escrow sort of system?
Thank you. Sure.
This is mostly interest from either, we've got a portfolio of investments that we have, so a lot of it's with either building societies or other local authorities who are borrowing for relatively short term. We've got some longer term investments in there as well. So we've got some with DCLA, which is in a money market fund, which is still a very low risk area. And then there's some with their property fund as well. So that's probably a lower interest, but also secure.
Are you constantly changing them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, or do they go?
Yeah, review daily.
Okay, review daily. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions from members? No. Okay. So in terms of this, obviously Cabinet have seen it, and we obviously can pass comment on items. I think we've raised a number of questions and points of information that we'd like more information on.
If Cabinet have seen it, they've already voted on it, they've already passed it. So what's the point in commenting on it?
Well, you've got a very good point, Councillor Dr. Brown. We have had this discussion before. I have spoken to Leah. I have spoken to Leah recently about this matter, and we are looking to try and change that system so that it does come to us before going to cabinet. I totally understand your frustrations there, Councillor Dr. Brown. I'll bring Leah in at this point because
No, before she comes in.
Oh, sorry.
I'll just say then, what is the point of scrutiny?
Thank you. I'll just bring in Councillor Graves first, and then I'll pass over to Leah.
I'll go home.
Thank you, Chair, and also thank you very much, because if I add a comment or two, it might then give the whole field to Leah to respond. I have a bit of a view that Cabinet maybe should see this first. They are the governing committee of the council. I kind of get that. I'm a bit uncomfortable if we see it first. Maybe we see it at the same time. It just depends on the rota of meetings. However, what I think would be really healthy, and I hope Councillor Knight would really embrace this, is our comments are formally fed back at some point. I don't know how, I don't know what the mechanism would be, but I wouldn't want to delay Cabinet seeing a quarter outturn. I'd want them to get it as quickly as they could. We have discussed in a previous meeting that we should see it in a timely fashion because the last meeting had 2 quarters together, and there was a paragraph in the EAR report which expressed a bit of concern that there were some delays in it coming here. So I know that officers have taken that on board, but my priority is the comments are feeding back in, and it's already been referenced even about what comments we conclude on this report. And I think one of the general comments I am picking up is, yes, there's good interest income, but there are significant overruns, and that's raising a few members' concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor King, you had your hand up.
Chairman, there's nothing new about this, but I do think, given the comments that the leaders made, that the LGA peer review made, and that's over a year ago, that we've made ourselves previously at these meetings over the last 2.5 years, that, and before that, in fact, that reports like this should come to scrutiny so we can feed back solid comments so the Cabinet can then take them into view in their deliberations. Now, as a previous leader, I can honestly say that's extremely helpful when we get such comments. What's not helpful is getting them after the horse has bolted. And I think it's really important. So I do think this needs addressing. Now, how's this addressed? Now, there's only 2 ways you can do this. One, you have to increase the number of scrutiny meetings so that you've got more opportunities to actually get the alignment right. You're not going to be able to mess around that much with Cabinet meetings because they tend to fit in with the council meetings and other decisions that have to be made. So, if we go back, and I'm not suggesting we have monthly meetings, but we do need to probably have more frequent meetings than 1 a quarter. And if we only have 1 a quarter, it has to hit when these reports are ready, and we should be seeing it. If I put my other hat on for a moment as a county councillor, I see the report before the Cabinet's, before they consider it, and then we send our comments to the Cabinet and they can do what they like with it, rather than us seeing it afterwards. Otherwise, as Councillor Dr. Brammer said, and I'm sure the Centre for Good Governance and Scrutiny would say the same, what's the point if we're doing it afterwards? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I am in agreement.
I know you are, Chair. Because I haven't been a councillor consistently through the years, but I have been on the old scrutiny chair. And if a Cabinet is to work effectively, they have to be scrutinised, and that is the function of scrutiny. And if I'm hearing correctly that you're only having the frequency of meetings is what? Quarterly. Then there's no way that scrutiny can properly keep a candle on what Cabinet are proposing and doing. And scrutiny can give value to the Cabinet and to the leader because it puts more brains into different issues that come before the council and before the leadership of this council. And if there's a resource issue and I'm looking at my computer screen, I'm looking at lots of paper, and I'm thinking, well, you could increase the take up of electronic use, and you can write on the electronically on the, sorry, I'm going on another horse, but that the principle is scrutiny should be enhancing the cabinet, and if you devalue it, then that is a slippery slope. I'm sorry, that is a very slippery slope.
Thank you. Councillor Mulder.
Perhaps there is a logical reason. Can I ask the officers what the reason is why we don't do it like that? I want to ask the question because perhaps there's somebody sitting somewhere thinking, well, no, this is how we do it because of this reason.
I think Leah is waiting to come in here, so I'm going to bring her in right now.
I don't know enough of the history to comment on why the arrangement is as it is right now. As the chair referenced, we have been talking about the timing of these meetings and looking at moving forwards, bringing the meetings that are reviewing the performance and finance before the cabinet meeting. So it does act as a pre-scrutiny. It gives the opportunity to say, you know, we're concerned about your performance in this area. We're concerned about the overspends in this area. Cabinet, what are you going to do about it? What I do need to do, though, is work with Clive, Sean, Kay, and see how that works alongside the timetables for developing these reports, and therefore when the scrutiny meetings would need to be, and whether that impacts on the cabinet timetable. So we would look at doing all of that to incorporate into the 26-27 civic year timetable. So it's a little way off, it's a couple of months off, but it's definitely something we're looking at, and we are looking at ongoing enhancements to our scrutiny practice. And a good example of that was Councillor Finan, you attended Cabinet a couple of weeks ago to present scrutiny recommendations, which is the first time in a long time. So absolutely, it's something I'm fairly passionate about, trying to strengthen and support, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you. Councillor Mulder.
Thank you, Leah. But with all due respect, when I started in 2015, it worked. And for some reason, it ended up sort of where we are today. And I feel that it's something that is very important and it should be given the highest priority to get it back to how it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, like Leah said, we had a meeting not so long ago to discuss that, to try to actually get it more in line so that we could feed back to Cabinet regarding these quarterly reports, because I know it does feel like after the horse is bolted kind of thing. Right, so Sarah has taken notes on the points raised, and what I will do is I'll feed that back to Cabinet at their next available convenience. Thank you very much. So that is item number 5. Item number 6, we have a report on a special expenses review and the treatment of reserve balances and charging for grounds maintenance work. It is on page 43 of your packs. So if I could ask you to turn to that page if you've not already done so, and I think we're going to get Councillor Knight present the report to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as allowed by Section 25 of the Local Government Act 1992, councils are permitted to charge residents of town and parish areas and non-parish areas with a special expense council tax charge for work undertaken by the council in those areas that normally a town or is normally a town or parish responsibility. The council approved its special expenses policy in February 2016. However, since that date, it has been established that considerable reserve balances have built up since 2019, totaling 366k, 401k in surplus balances and 35k in deficit balances. Grounds maintenance works totaling 280k has not been charged to special expense areas, therefore not in full compliance with the policy. The views of this panel are sought on the most equitable means for dealing with these balances.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. So, so it is that we are being asked to make recommendations of how we deal with the balances. That's the purpose of our role this evening. So if I could pass this over to Clive, who was the author of much of the report, to go through the finer details.
Thank you. Thank you, members. I'll take you through page by page because I know it probably is a little bit complicated. So if we start on page 44, so that's sort of discussing to you the purpose of the report. This was a review that has been undertaken to look at some elements of special expenses. If we move to page 45, the review. So back in the budget was set for 25-26, it was agreed to undertake a special expenses review. That was procured, but we got no takers. So I have undertaken this review on the council's behalf. Just a gentle reminder what special expenses are. They're basically a special regulation for district councils to undertake what we call concurrent services, and basically these are services that are usually the responsibility of a town or parish council, but they are not provided by that town or parish council, so the district council can undertake those services on their behalf and can recharge the properties in that area for the cost of those services, and it is relatively as straightforward as that. So the council approved a policy in February 2016 that determined what we would charge for, and that is detailed in page 46. Basically, there are 12 special expense areas, and that bullet point 3 sort of details what those areas are. What councillors need to remember is we do not have to charge special expenses. It is a choice. I've worked at local authorities where they have provided those services and not recharged them to those areas. It is a choice to have special expenses. Our policy also takes into account revenue and capital items. This report doesn't look at capital items, but it's primarily looking at the revenue items relating to some balances and grounds maintenance. Moving on to the detail. So the first is split into 2 sections, one on revenue balances, which starts on page 46, and a bit later on to do with grounds maintenance. So in the autumn of last year, it came to my attention that we were holding on to a considerable number of balances for different special expense areas. Some credits, some debits. I can see how this has been done and how they've accumulated. I mean, the biggest one by far is Market Harborough, but there has been a reason for that. They've been setting aside some monies to potentially do some capital works in due course that will provide some of the funding. But the smaller items shown in that table, what's been